I always forget to unmute. Hey, Twitch. Yeah, so Owen again. Thanks for joining my live stream. And yeah, so I'm picking up where I left off last week, and I'll get to that here in a moment. Basically, we're going to continue working on permissions for role-based authorization in LiveShowy. Something fun happened the other day. I was in the kitchen cooking just a couple rooms away. I heard some commotion, didn't really pay it any mind. I had my headphones on. I was listening to a podcast or something. And it turns out that I had a candle sitting on top of my speaker over here, just behind my monitor. I can't really move the camera to show you, but long story short, what you see behind me on the ground is the frame that holds up these Elgato sound wave panels. They're pretty effective. I like them. You know, it was easier to put those up than it was to like go and make my own sound absorbers, and definitely much less expensive. So they've worked really well. I can hear a difference now that some of them are down. You probably can't hear it too much through the microphone, through this microphone anyway. What happened was they were stuck to the wall with 3M tape, and they come with 3M tape. I had moved them around a few times, so I had 3M tape that I bought from the store. I think the strips were a little bit smaller. And long story short, I think because the walls in this particular room are painted with like the satin paint, it's not extremely glossy, but like you can see almost a reflection from the light in the window. And yeah, I think it's just a little bit too smooth for that 3M tape to stick very well. So what had happened was the panels, I had like this whole array of six panels behind my desk, and I guess with humidity and just the wall not being very absorbent to the adhesive, it collapsed. Like the weight of the sound absorbers being stacked vertically up the wall, I guess, was too much. And it had been humid. I'd been leaving the windows open more and more so that I could get some of that nice humidity that I prefer. That was too much to ask for the 3M tape on those absorbers. So that would have been okay. I could deal with that. But not only did they collapse, I had a candle sitting on top of my speaker, and they collapsed onto the candle. So that candle got tipped over while it was actually lit. So the wax was actually liquid. And I didn't really know all this happened until I came in, and there was dried candle wax all over my desk, on my floor, on the keyboard, on the trackpad. It was a mess. And I didn't have time to deal with it, and really until today. So I did push my live stream back by an hour. And if we get some participation today, maybe that's actually a good thing. But yeah, so I kind of delayed cleaning it up because my day job, the project I'm on, was a little bit hectic and had to get things done. Had to keep momentum going on that, so I didn't really want to stop what I was doing. Didn't really have the flexibility to stop what I was doing to clean this up. And anyway, I don't want to go too far into project and client work, but yeah, so it actually turned out to be a little bit easier than I thought it was going to be. So pro tip, if you ever spill candle wax and you don't get to it immediately while it's still liquid, there's a couple ways you can clean it up. If it's on a hard surface, which it was for most of where it spilled for me, it works really well just to use a blow dryer to kind of melt the wax and then wipe it up with a paper towel. I saw some mention of, I think maybe if it's melted into like fabric, you could use an iron and maybe a towel, like a white towel, so that the dye doesn't bleed in to the other fabric. And that would maybe absorb the wax up into the towel. So yeah, Google around if that ever happens to you. Hopefully it doesn't. That's spilled candles is pretty rare, at least in my life. So hopefully that's the last time I have to deal with a spilled candle ever, or at least for the next decade, so I can focus more on having fun and doing fun stuff with Elixir. So that brings me to permissions. So I don't want to recap everything about LiveShowy. There's a batch of videos that I've recorded, and those are on YouTube now if you want to kind of catch up or just kind of see things I've been working on. I definitely recommend watching those at probably 2x because, yeah, it might, they're kind of long videos. So last week I finished kind of the preliminary steps of role-based authorization and merged that branch into my code base. This week, I'm picking up where I left off, building up a permission schema that can be used, or maybe multiple permission schemas that can be used for role-based authorization. Typically, before the live stream, I like to think through and kind of plan out what I'm going to do. Because I was cleaning up candle wax, I didn't really have time to do that. I also had errands to run today. So yeah, I'm going to be maybe a little bit more meandering. It'll be meandering, probably a little bit more than normal, even though I'm probably typically doing that already. So yeah, I've meandered enough. We're a few minutes in. So let's jump in. So yeah, this is the kind of the ticket or card that I'm working on in my project for LiveShowy. And so far, I think what I landed on last week was just creating one permission, at least to start. And that's the live permission. By the way, I did adjust my resolution. So even though I have a 4K monitor, I've downscaled it to, I think, 2K, roughly, something like that. So hopefully this is a little bit easier to see even on a 1080p device, even on mobile maybe. So I'll just wait for feedback before I make more adjustments on that. I did notice that there's a new follower, so thanks to everyone who's been following recently. And I look forward to maybe even having some real-time viewers. Okay, so what I have right now is a live permission, and it has just two fields. It has a field for the module, which currently, currently it's a string. The reason for that is I wanted the field to define that as an atom, so I could just have like LiveShowy dot stage live or something, and have that atom in the field. But I don't think Ecto supports atoms natively because they have to be kind of converted before they get to the database, and I don't think that's built in. So let's see, I'm just going to do a quick search for schema. We're going to go to Ecto directly. And then let's see here in the schema. We have types and casting. So here under the types and casting section, you can see all the different types that would be available to use in these fields. And atom is not an option. By the way, I'm saying atom, A-T-O-M. Okay, so I could create a custom type, but I'm not really sure if I want to, or if it makes sense to do that. Because I think the atom would be converted to a string automatically by, like, Ecto is going to do that for me. So even if I'm not doing the conversion myself, whenever I, pump data into the change set, it's going to convert those atoms to strings for me. So I think I can just try this for my EX. I'm switching context from my client project, so I'm trying not to type the wrong project name whenever I do this. There, I almost did it. Authorization LivePermission change set. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit verbose. Authorization LivePermission. Okay, so that's going to be the struct or the schema that it starts with, and then I'm going to go ahead and give it module is LiveShowy dot, let's just say accounts, just to have something in there, and then events. This is going to be a list, so we'll just put a test event in here. Okay, so it really does not actually convert the atom to a string for me. And it would, so as I'm thinking through how this is going to be used, I don't necessarily, like I don't want to have to do all this type conversion in other modules. I think the best practice for this kind of thing is to, anytime you have to do a type conversion for a schema, do it either directly in the schema or create a custom type. So what we can do is read the docs. I've done this recently for, I did create a custom type for the coast key, so we may use that as an example. But first, just for clarity, we're going to look at the type module, just so I can kind of refresh my memory on what it does, what it is. I know my video is covering up part of the screen here. So I'll just read this out loud. So ecto.type is behavior. It defines functions and the ecto type behavior for implementing basic custom types. Ecto provides two types of custom types, basic types and parameterized types. Basic types are simple, requiring only 4 callbacks to be implemented and are enough for most occasions. That's probably what I need. Parameterized types can be customized on the field definition and provide a wide variety of callbacks. Definition of basic custom types and all of their callbacks are available in this module. You can learn more about parameterized types in ecto.parameterized type, which is a different module. If in doubt, prefer to use basic custom types and rely on parameterized types if you need the extra functionality. I'm just curious. I don't think I've looked at parameterized types before, so I'm just kind of curious. Not that I want to use this. It does sound like it's going to be more complex. But yeah, I think I see already what this would be used for. So parameterized types are ectotypes that can be customized per field. Parameterized types allow a set of options to be specified in the schema, which are initialized on compilation and passed to the callback functions as the last argument. For example, field foo, string behaves the same for every field. On the other hand, field foo ecto enum values with the list of values will likely have different set of values per field. Okay, that's a great example. So a parameterized type is, it's kind of like a basic type, but you can provide it options and you can kind of configure the type whenever you're actually using it. For atom to string and string to atom conversion, that's not necessary. So I can fortunately use just a standard old type. So I'm going to actually pull open the coast key type that I created so I can use that as a reference. And then I'm going to create a new type for atom. And I'm going to move this over to the side so I can see them both. Okay, I think that's all I need to say. I don't know if you can see that on the screen here, but just the module doc for this new type is going to be custom type for atom values. Simple and straightforward, I think. Use ecto, ecto.type, def type, do I wonder if I can just say atom. There is a built-in atom. Ooh. I wonder if I can just say atom. Like, just use the atom directly from Elixir. Is that going to blow things up? Oh yeah, does not like that. Okay, yeah, so Ecto does not really know what to do with the built-in atom type. Invalid or unknown type atom for field module. So, all right, so we're going to have to alias this to the new custom type. Types.atom. Go ahead and separate out my LiveShowy stuff from the built-in stuff. Okay, so it compiles at least. So, okay, so we have the type. Then we need to define cast value when is atom value. Try. Rescue. I'm just going to say if there's any kind of error, we're going to return an error atom. So let's see. Cast, def cast anything that's not an atom will also return an error. And then def load data. Okay, so when is binary data due? Okay, I'm going to finish coding this and I'll kind of walk through what these things mean and what they're doing. Case. Okay. You know, we're gonna hope it just works like that. Oh, no, that was right. I was right. Okay, so rescue will just return an error atom, and then, so that was load, and then now we've got to do dump value when is atom value do, okay. I think cast and dump are kind of almost doing the same thing. ToString. Nope. Okay, I think this will work. I'm gonna recompile. Sweet, it works. Okay. So let's take a look at the documentation for these functions that I've implemented. And then we will have a better understanding. So we'll focus on just this atom custom type over here. Okay, so first thing we're doing is we're actually using the ecto type behavior. So that defines all the callbacks that we could or we should implement, which I'm actually not I'm not marking these as impl true. I don't even know if I have to. We'll see. No, I don't see anything in the docs for this page about using impl or implement true. Okay, so I think we're not using callbacks, we're using these functions here. So what's the first one? The first one is the type function, so it retrieves the underlying schema type for the given, possibly custom type. So we want this to be basically an atom, at least when it's being read back from the database. Whenever it's being stored into the database, we're converting it from an atom to a string. So let's see here. The cast is the next function that I've created here. So it casts a value to the given type. So do I have this backwards? Cast. Maybe type is actually supposed to be binary. Yeah, I think the underlying type is supposed to be binary, so it casts a value to the given type. Okay. So this must actually be the callback. I wonder if I add impl true, what's going to happen? I understand impl true for like a gen server. I've used that plenty. on the first version of LiveShowy. Oh, I think you'll have to do it on the first definition. Let's see if it recompiles. It sure does. Still works. Okay. Or still produces the results I expected, at least, whenever I'm casting a change set. Cool. So what this is doing is I can now, like I don't know if you remember earlier, I was passing in the module with an atom and it was failing or throwing an error or maybe an exception because the, because Ecto could not automatically convert that atom to a string in the database for me. So that's what this whole type module is doing. So cast takes this atom value and converts it to a string and then returns an OK tuple for that. Otherwise, it returns an error. It also will return an error if you try to do this, like if I tried to pass in a value that is not an atom, then this should fail. There we go. So if I tried to pass in a module with a string LiveShowy.accounts, then it shows me, it returns an error. The module is invalid. Type LiveShowy.types.atom validation cast. So good. That's doing what I want it to do. Because I don't even want to see any string conversion for this particular thing outside of this module. Okay, so the next thing that it's implemented is load. So this loads the given term into a custom type. So this takes the string from the database and returns it as an existing atom. So this this will work because at the time that you cast it, that atom will have been created. So it's already in the system in Erlang, or it's going to be in the VM, in the memory somewhere. And then whenever it's loaded, that string to existing atom ensures that we're not accidentally rendering new atoms that are not in the system. That could create a memory overload. Because there's a limited number of atoms that you can have by default in an Elixir app or an Erlang app. Something like 1 million, it's more than that, but somewhere in that ballpark. Okay. I'm going to take a quick break just for a couple seconds, and I will be right back. All right. Couple seconds, right? Ooh, hey, we got a chat. So, hey, thanks to dupes. String to atom, arbitrary, Yeah, what could go wrong? Right. This will be user input, but it's not going to be arbitrary user input. At the end of the day, the only thing in this app that for the live permission, there should be like a drop down of maybe live views. So I don't think, if I'm kind of fast forwarding into the future, I think if there's like a user form for like an admin that's adding user roles for people, if they're adding permissions, then that's going to present a list, like a select of module names for those live views. So for my particular use case, it shouldn't be a problem even if I was using just toAtom. But yeah, I think there are checks in place to make sure you don't use that, because, or that you know specifically what you're doing whenever you use string toAtom. But anyway, it theoretically, yes, could be a problem. So anyway, we've got this custom atom type here. So now I can define permissions for live views. So this will be my live permissions module. What else? I think that's really all there is to it for that particular custom type. Cool. So okay, get those in. All right. So this is the LiveShowy authorization role schema. I'm from the South, so just a quick tangent here. It's funny how the mind works, right? So I'm from the South. I eat way fewer carbs than I used to, but when I said rolls just now, the first thing my brain went to was a restaurant or like a fast food chain that it probably still exists somewhere. It's called Grandy's. I remember they had, at least when I was growing up, I thought they had the best rolls. I think they were very buttery. Maybe there was like a little bit of honey or butter or something in there. Yeah, I had fond memories and probably put on a lot of pounds from those rolls. But this is a different kind of roll. This is not going to make you, it's not going to put on any pounds. Okay, so tangent over. I've got a live permission module doing what I need it to do, I think. So in the session hook, check for live view, module name, permission, live events. The event handlers use pattern matching. Okay. What's the next thing to do here? Let's just take a look. I have a feeling that I didn't quite get around to testing everything. Maybe I did. Let's see, maybe. Okay, some of this is actually generated from the auth generator that I used initially. So these tests, yeah, most of these predate. Okay, but I did actually create test for the roles, authorization stuff. So that's where I want to focus. So now I should be able to write tests for permissions, because permissions should belong, they belong in authorization as well. Let me go ahead and collapse these functions. By the way, if you ever want to just fold up your code so it's easier to kind of navigate on a Mac, the way you do that is Command K and then the level that you want to fold. So that's like the level of indentation. So the first level would be like if I do Command K1, let's see it kind of also depends on where your cursor is. It's not going to fold code that would hide the cursor. So Command K1. Command K. Well, I started explaining before. Let me see. Unfold. Just to let myself off the hook a little bit, I did go into overtime on client project for the past couple of days. Maybe slightly underslept. Okay, the dupe says, is it one-to-one user per role, or more of a permission capability model where a given user might have many assigned permissions? The kind of the mental model that I like for this kind of stuff is, this is maybe premature for this particular app, but I think it would be a good pattern. It might allow a lot of flexibility in the future. So the very first time I started reading up on role-based authorization was for I think my first kind of semi-professional development role. I was creating, doing an update for let's call it an e-commerce app, and kind of planning out how we would want to kind of refactor a lot of kind of legacy spaghetti PHP code. And so I wanted to kind of rethink authorization and authentication from the very start. So, that particular app was more of like a platform where, like, it was a B2B, like a business to business app, where like this platform would be like hired, or you'd have multiple, say, venues that would use this platform. And one of the limitations they had with their legacy system was that users were only associated with one organization, or they could only be associated with one organization. And so if they wanted to work for multiple venues, they would need to have multiple email addresses and sign in with multiple email, multiple authentication and email password combos. And you can imagine how much of a nightmare that is for a user, but also for support when you do stuff like that. I mean, so I knew I wanted to solve that problem. I read up a little bit on role-based authorization. So to answer your question, finally, the whole goal of this is to have so there's users, which are one thing. There's roles, which are one thing. A role is basically a set of permissions. And this is kind of like a hierarchical structure. So a permission will be associated with, let's think about live permissions, since that's where I'm starting. A live permission will have, it's many to many is right. So a live permission will have multiple events that are allowed for a given module. A role will have multiple permissions, which have those events for multiple modules, for a module. And then a user can have roles across multiple groups or organizations. So imagine if you're using LiveShowy, you might be in 2 or 3 bands, and you might want to have roles, like you might be a drummer in one band and like a singer in another band, or like a producer for like 10 bands or something. I mean, these days you can do kind of anything. And so that's kind of, since I kind of learned about that and kind of thought it through, and never fully implemented in the code on that project, but it's something that's been in my mind ever since. Like, I get really frustrated whenever I encounter an app that doesn't do it that way, because it's just so, it gets really messy. The last thing I'll kind of touch on here is that it doesn't serve every single authorization need that you might encounter. This is kind of like a layered approach. So like a role authorization or access check is going to check and see, can this user access or like perform any events in this module based on the permissions. So that works pretty well for that type of use case. But there's also a different type of authorization. I'd have to refresh my memory, but let's say like you want to ensure that a user can only edit their own profile. That doesn't require a role. That's just like a entity kind of thing. Don't know the terms on that, but yeah. So that's role-based is like where I think 80% of the authorization is going to happen for this kind of thing. Oh, hey, Zach. Cool. So welcome to the party. All right. So that's role-based authorization and permissions. By the way, if I get anything wrong, feel free to put something in the chat and I will Staying corrected. Okay, so if I want to test this, I don't have any functions in here for creating or managing permissions. Currently, I don't even know if I have. So this is going to be an embedded schema for a role. So these, I just have recent experience with embeds as well. But have I written any tests for embedded schemas? Today's the day. Embeds. Are you always going to check against server-side permissions, like in the session hook query in the database, or assign the set of permissions and check against that? Server-side permissions, or will you assign the set of permissions and check against that? So I think what I plan on doing is, I may have a hook in here somewhere already. Okay, I haven't done so much on the website yet, at least for this. Oh, that's test. Yep, okay, I do have so I have an authorization hook I've started here. All it does right now is it's just kind of like a placeholder. But this is where I anticipate doing most of the authorization checks, at least for like roles. And then I may, if it gets too big, I may separate it out. But I think what's going to happen here is, so in the router, am I already calling this somewhere? Yeah, I don't think I've actually, I don't even have it aliased here. So let's say I've got like a list, like an admin scope that would be wrapped in a live session. And then I would use probably a couple of different session hooks. One of those hooks would be authorization. Again, we would just default. So we use the default authorization here. And the nice thing here is in a socket, you can get information about what live view is being accessed. And I think that is an atom as well. So I can just take whatever atom is, showing up in the socket as the live view, pipe that through like an authorization check method or a function, forgive me, and then pass or fail, allow the socket to continue or halt the socket with a flash message if the user is not permitted for that thing. Hope that makes sense. I think if I'm going to add permissions to a role, I think the function name for that would be add permissions. So this would accept, I would believe, like a role and a permission schema or map or whatever. So this function does not exist, and we should see a failure. Embeds valid. What do I have in my setup here? Great, that's awesome. Didn't you love it when you do things right from the start? Okay, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and just snag all these things here. seen some suboptimal tests lately. Right, if it works the first time, definitely be suspicious. So this should definitely fail because I'm going to call a method or a function that doesn't exist. I don't know why I started saying method all of a sudden. I've not even been doing OO aside from a little bit of JavaScript on the client because I had to. Authorization dot add permission. So it's going to take a role and I want to give it a real LiveShowy module. So this would be LiveShowy web landing live. LiveShowy web landing live. Then events. What do we have in here? We have no events. We'll just call it a test event. And I want this function to return OK error tuples. So this should return the role with the updated permissions. Cool. So let's run that test. Probably didn't need to run them all. Oh, you know this happens more often than I would like to admit. Yeah, I was not live sharing or sharing the screen. Okay, so what did I break here? Error change set, admin. Right, okay, because I've not updated my role fixture. Yeah, talking while muted, that it's happened a couple times as well. So let's see. So yeah, I need to update my fixture. Was it the role fixture or authorization? Role authorization fixtures. There it is. Okay. These aren't actually events. This isn't either, but this should be a little bit more self-explanatory. All right, let's see if we get one test instead of 21 now. Well, we have fewer, at least. All right. Should grab a straw next time I step away. So I need to revisit this type module that I created because I think I maybe have misunderstood. So for the coast key, the type is binary. Atom. Type is binary here as well. Cannot load. Maybe I just need to def load data do data. That didn't work either. Let's see. Cannot load is type. All right. Rescue me, ecto.type. This callback is called when loading data from the database and receives an ecto native type. It can return any type as long as the dump function is also able to convert the return value back into an ecto native type. So load should be loading it from the database as a binary string, converting that to an existing atom. LiveShowy web, landing live. I'm curious what happens if I inspect. Let's see, inspect. LiveShowy web landing. I'm trying to remember how to get the full module name. Like, I don't remember if it should or should not have Elixir at the beginning. I guess it should work. Okay. So the problem isn't that Elixir is being, Elixir is part of the name. Cannot load as type LiveShowy atom for field module. Let's find out what happens if we live dangerously. Okay, still failing. So it's not the wrong string function. I'm going to, when in doubt, IO inspect. I'm also going to give it a label. Should probably tell it only to be testing that one function. This would be line 161, so I can kind of mute all the other errors for now. Okay. Let's go ahead and add this. I'm kind of wondering, I was thinking about separating these permission functions into a separate module and renaming this one for roles, but permissions are actually embedded in roles, so I think it makes sense to embed these functions in the same module. But I think what I will do is keep them kind of grouped together by like their CRUD. like what they're doing in the CRUD. So let's see, def add permission. Using term to binary and binary to term for persistent module. That's true. That could work. I like the are you saying that would be an alternative to the custom Ecto type? I'll just throw that somewhere in the chain set. So using a string of the module. Yeah, so like whenever, so in the fixture, so this is how I want it to work. I'm passing in the atom. Whenever I did this in IEX, what did it do? Okay, well, yeah, this should be fine because whenever I ran this in IEX, I was just using LivePermission change set just to fire off a single permission. That fails whenever I provide it with a string, but it should succeed whenever I provide it with an atom, which is correct. It converts it to a string for me. I think what's happening here is whenever it's being loaded from the database, I'm getting this error. Also, I think I was inspecting it and then forgot. Oh, well, I ran the test for the function that doesn't exist. So I kind of got a little bit scatterbrained. Let's see. So I'm going to come back to this because I'm not actually sure if whenever I use an embedded schema, is this going to overwrite? Like if I add a permission, I don't want to overwrite the permission. I just want to basically insert a new permission. Let's see. And permission. So let's comment that for just a moment, and then we're going to actually exclude that test. Or maybe just ignore it for the moment. I want to find out what's going on with the loading before I actually implement that function. So that should pass as binary. I'm confused because I'm not seeing the Watch, this is going to be a typo or something. I'm not seeing this IO inspect, so I should be seeing like a load colon either a string or an atom, but I don't see it there. So what's up with that? I'm gonna mute that test for now. Should be down to 4 failures. If I actually run the test. Okay. At least I can still do math. Roll. Okay, so this is happening whenever we read the roll back from the database. So that makes sense. Everything's making sense, except that it's not actually converting it back to an atom. Maybe, is this supposed to be atom here? Maybe I was right initially. Well, that was not it. Load term. I don't even hear the craziness down the street. Let's see. Makes me wonder if this is actually coming back in as an atom somehow. Yeah, this is what does not make sense, is that I'm not seeing any of these IO inspects. Okay. I did see some error here. Okay, so it really does want me to have impl true there. Cannot load this string as type. Okay, so load is supposed to return either an OK tuple or an error atom. I'm wrapping string to existing atom inside an OK tuple. Yeah, so cast is right here. And it's casting the atom to a string. We can see that whenever it's pulling this from the database. So like it's casting okay, it's just not loading correctly. And I'm also, like I'm not seeing the IO inspect whenever I hit load. String to string. What do you mean there? What about strings to string? Actually, I'm just going to do this and to existing. That works. Load only takes one argument. Let's see, am I doing... Cast. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so I think I was throwing an error here. He'll be my hero if that works. Unsafe load is what it's showing here. Okay, so let's just walk through this trace. Authorization test 35. Roles, list roles. So at this point, the role's already been inserted as a fixture through setup. It goes to list roles from this function. I'm not going to go into all the Ecto functions here. But so it queries all, it executes that query, processes, it loads the struct, processes, it finds an embedded schema, so it tries to load the schema. It's encountering the custom type, so it's trying to load that. And this is what's happening. You know what? When in doubt, type it out. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to comment that and just type it over again. This has saved my bacon a few times. That didn't work either. Unsafe load. What is going on? Cannot load the string as a type. I'm trying to convert the string. Okay. What do I have to do in the cos key? Cos key. So in cos key, I take the binary, I decode it, which comes back in this format. I return the decoded cos key. Otherwise, I'll return an error. Well, like what happens? What happens if you get an expression if you do like if you pass like a non-binary or like a invalid value to existing atom? So I think that should always throw an exception. It shouldn't be throwing an exception here because that's a valid atom string. But I'm not against trying things. The thing is, like, this module, so string.toExisting atom only returns an atom. I don't think there's another, like, I don't think it's going to return nil. String. Yeah, it only returns an atom. Or it blows up, right? So let's try this. This is one of those moments where your brain just starts to go like, ugh, go for a walk. I've not been this stumped, at least on the live stream. I don't think I've been this stumped, at least. So I can't even write more tests if this just won't work. Because it's, I mean, I could remove the permission from the fixture, so it just creates a role with no permissions, but I think I may actually be requiring, yeah, to casting embed, it's required. Please add at least one line permission. Does rescue have to be part of a try? Can you? So here, I think rescue, that's a good question. I think I would get like a compilation error if you couldn't do this. But let's try that. Get it? Yeah, so like rescue, my understanding, and I'll double check this, but my understanding is this will just catch or like save you from errors wherever you put it, like even within the function. So def. Yeah, so right here you can define a function. You can say string to integer, and then if there's an error, it will return that message. So back up a little bit here. Now I could say if this error is in argument, or I could just say if this is argument error. Shouldn't matter, but All right, it's time to just light this computer on fire. The good news is it wasn't just a typo, I guess. Wonder what if I just return the data unchanged here. Yeah, I'm glad that didn't work because that would be more confusing. So I'm going to go ahead and add that clause back. So when is binary data? I'm going to add the fallback load data when is Atom data do Atom data. Otherwise, if somehow there's like an integer coming through, then that's just going to be an error. Doesn't seem like that should fix the test, but who knows at this point? Welp. I agree. Something sus is going on. You gonna help me with this? Come on. Say hi. All right. Let's try. It seems like it's not even. It's doing unsafe load. Embedded. Enomax. Map reduce. Schema loader. Let's try. Clean that up first. It seems like this is just what string to existing atom does under the hood, but we'll find out. Let's try term. Returns the underlying schema. Provide your own data structure as a type. I can't believe I was able to implement WebAuthn over LiveSockets, but this is what's going to break me. How's that? How's it possible? How's it possible, Santos? I don't care. Okay. Load. Def LOAD. I gotta tuple with OK. Maybe this is the problem right here. This whole time it was not load, it was it was dump. Value. Do error. Watch. This is gonna work. This is going to work. I'm gonna take one last look here. There we go. Okay. Close my eyes. Damn. Well, I really thought, I really did think that was gonna work. Anytime it's stored in a struct, it needs to be, and it needs to validate them and convert it to a native type. Dump is supposed to return an OK tuple or an error atom. Kernel to string. I mean, I think it's like it's converting to a string because like this is wrapped in quotes. So I don't think it's like I don't think it's atom to string failing. Like it's got to be me misunderstanding or misplacing something here. I think I'm gonna look at coast key side by side just so we can kind of see. Because like the coast key is like a big map naturally, and then when it's stored in the database, it's encoded as a string. So when a coast key is loaded, let's start from the top. So put this back as binary. Oh. Okay, so I know coast key works. I'm able to get coast keys in and out of the database, no problem. Been doing that for a couple weeks now. So the type is binary for both of these. They're both stored as strings in the database. For cast, when the value is like the kind of the natural value, I convert it to a string of some kind. Return an OK tuple or an error. And then if I cast anything that's not like an atom or a map, depending on which module, I just return an error. For load, when it's binary, it decodes it. The CBOR module actually does return an OK error tuple, so I can actually use that to pattern match. That's good. But I can't pattern match really on string to exist atom because it just returns an atom or it blows up. So it should be returning the result there, and then load data when the data is already an atom. Like these are not even implemented for coast key. Go ahead and just comment those for now. Okay, then for dump, whenever is atom value, putting it back in as a string. Otherwise, just returning the value. I wonder if I just remove all these ample trues, since I didn't use those in the coast key. I mean, that shouldn't work either. It's good that it didn't. All right, I think I'm going to play my shouting into the void card. Gonna take a few minutes, maybe walk around the block. And in that time, the answer will appear. It will surface out of thin air. Without the rescue and any patterns, what is load returning? Without the rescue and any patterns, what is load? I mean, I added IO inspect because I thought it would show up here even within the test, but it never did. There may be something about this that I don't understand here about this type behavior. So like, yeah, what if we just let it blow up? Okay, so the type doesn't need to be there. Yep. All right, time to take a break. So I will make this, let me take a quick look here. Yeah, this will be a, make this a 10-minute break. And then I'll be back. All right, I see I've got my first spammer in here too. So I would not recommend buying followers, primes, and viewers on that store. Bye. Okay. All right. So I didn't learn anything from the universe while I was walking. I see that Santos got even needier while I was gone. I have no idea still why I'm getting this error whenever I tried to get a permission in and out of the database. So the module is like, I want to store it as an atom. Well, I want to send it in as an atom, and I want it to be stored as a string in the database. And then I want it to be read back as an atom. So like basically every time I interact with it, I want it to just show up as an atom. And the database can't store atoms, so it's got to store it as a string. Torch build, force test. Not a bad idea. I think there's even like a flag. I saw this the other day, test. So force, I think we'll force it to recompile. Let's just read the docs. Yeah, so force will recompile everything, or it should, I think. Let's just try that first. And then we'll torch it and rebuild if we have to. Okay, we have to. So this is my, this is the command I'll use all the time since it's in history. rm, rf, so remove everything in these directories, deps, build, elixir ls, and then run, after that's done, run mix deps get. There have been a couple of issues lately where on another app I was working on, it's kind of a convoluted problem to explain, but like I was seeing, long story short, I had some data being sent from a controller into a view, and because that app didn't have live view, couldn't use live view. I was dumping JSON into like a value of a hidden field and then parsing it in JavaScript, which that works really well, like whenever you have to do things like that. But somehow at some point, probably as I was changing things, it was storing an array instead of an object, and that, you know, as I was updating things that I thought were going into an object, it was dumping them into an array, and then that array was not being encoded back to JSON for the controller correctly, so it was showing up as an empty value. So this kind of reminds me of that. Yeah, if removing the build folder and everything fixes this, then that's great. That means that I wasn't doing anything wrong. It was just the a compilation issue. But I have a feeling it's not going to be that easy. By the way, I just talked to someone in Salt Lake from Nav. They'll be on the podcast in a couple weeks. So keep an ear out for that if you happen to be in Salt Lake City. This is interesting how it, if you watch the compilation, so this is an M1 max. I'm still getting the same result, but it kind of, I forget the breakdown of performance and efficiency cores. So there are some points where I will see, like across the board, everything's at 100%, but yeah, not always. Sometimes it seems to use about half or like 3/4 of the cores at full volume. Anyway, and you know what? I forget which version. I think I may be running on Erlang 25 here. Yes, so I'm getting JIT optimizations. With the roadblocks on this thing, I wonder if maybe there's no way this is a Erlang version problem. I'm gonna call that a last resort, like downgrading to Erlang 24, and Elixir compiled for that. We'll try that last, but I want to see if there's anything else I can do with the code. So I'm going to add this rescue clause. Just so it's back where it should be. It should return an error if it doesn't return an OK value tuple. But I wonder if I just return the data, is that going to fail? That wouldn't make sense if it passes. Oh. All right, this may be the least productive live stream I've had so far. Okay. I think I just saw something on my screen, and that's a good point. I'm using binary, which I think is what you're supposed to do here, because I don't think string will work. We'll try that real quick before I point to the thing I just saw with my 2 eyeballs. Yep. Okay, that didn't work. So it just dawned on me, this is an embedded schema, not just a regular schema. And my eyes looked over at this function right here, embed as. I wonder if this is relevant. So this dictates the type, how the type should be treated inside embeds. By default, type is sent as itself without calling dumping to keep higher level representation, but it can be sent to dump so that it is dumped before encoding. Oh my God, that is confusing. Huh, okay. So, but I'm really glad we have specs because that kind of makes sense. So let's try implementing def embed as I think this would be binary, and then dump, if I'm reading that correctly. Okay, we're getting different errors. That's cool. Okay, so format is supposed to be an atom. I wonder if that's like supposed, like since I'm actually using an atom, I wonder if it's supposed to be the value where the atom is atom. Oh, that didn't work either. Okay. Embed as maybe this just needs to be dump. I think I'm gonna have to Google for an example if this doesn't work. Okay. Let's see what the form has to say here. Okay, so I was not the only person to be confused by this. Can someone please explain what the following means? Okay, so I've already read the docs, but here's the solution. Yeah, confusing. So this is about embedded schemas, hence the embedded blah, blah, blah. I get that. Handle through representation data, input data. Take the runtime format and serialize it to JSON. Da, da, da. Allows then to specify if we bypass. Okay, so this is, even with some conversation here, not quite, like there's not an example of, no one provided an example of using this particular callback. And there's not an example in the code, which is, I guess because it's a callback. I wonder if there is. Yeah, this function, I mean, that callback seems relevant, but I just can't make heads or tails of what, like how to actually use it. I'm glad I'm not the only one. That's good to know. I think I have an idea about this though. Embed as Atom should return self. Oh, no, that should be dump. Okay, I think that makes sense. Okay. Binary should be self. I agree. It's weird that the inspects wouldn't show me anything when load is called. Huh. Okay, so at least I got a helpful error message. It wants to know what to do. Following arguments. Okay, so I need to tell it what to do whenever the value is JSON. So if it's JSON, it should just be itself, right? Okay, I'm back to 4 failures. Let's try that. At this point, we're just spraying and praying. Whoa, we're down to 2 failures. Hey. Okay, let me refresh my memory on what dump is. So dump is anytime it's stored and stored. Okay, let's try another clause here. Another pattern match. So this would be when is binary existing atom. I think if this works, I'm going to put this example in that forum post because it's been 2 years, but I can imagine someone's going to run into this again. Feels like I'm getting closer. Maybe. I've got the same number of errors. I have the same errors actually. So that didn't actually change anything. Okay, let's take a look at this test because I'm not sure which, like there's a left and right comparison error. And I think the only thing that's different between them is the module is an atom on the right side, but it's a string on the left side. So I want to see what's going on there. So, okay, so whenever, oh, I see. Okay. So let's take a look at the fixtures. So whenever, there we go. So whenever it creates a role, it's coming back with the module and the permission as a string. Okay, that didn't change anything. I'm gonna tidy up that. Let's see, when is an atom converted to a string? All right, we're really close to just fixing these tests or fixing the fixture. So what's happening is whenever we create the role fixture, it goes through authorization, create role, uses the attributes over here, and And in the authorization test, the left side is the role that was the fixture. So from create role, it's coming back as a string. Strip out IDs and check inclusion. I do like to like this pattern for testing. I really like it. Like just as the role in the list. And like at the end of the day, like whenever I run create role, I want it to return back the role with the Atom module name in the permission. So I think I need to let's try dumping that or commenting that out. Deep in the trial and error phase here. Okay, back to errors with that. Yeah, because I think what you're saying is like, what if the IDs are different? I think the ID should be the same. So the permission ID ends in F3FD. That's the same ID we have here. Yeah, so removing the ID, I don't think would fix that test. I think for the thing that's different between the two is the module name showing up as a Atom whenever you run list roles. Whenever you run create roles, it's showing up as a string. What if I don't cast it? Let's just try that. Probably gonna have more errors. Oh yeah. Didn't like that. Okay. So when does it come back as a string? It comes back as a string. Or it's converted, so Atom is converted to a string during cast and during dump. Okay, yep, so yeah, the difference is what I expected here because this is a function that just gets an individual role, and you can see here that the only thing different is that it's yeah, because it's a string, it's also including that elixir prefix, but that gets removed once it's converted back to an Atom. So let's look at the role module just to kind of think about this. So when it's passed into the chain set, it casts the embed, live permissions, required true, required message. I wonder if there's something I need to do. So I think fixtures is okay. I don't have to do anything there. let's just try this and see if I can dump the value as itself. I don't think that worked. Nope. No change. So maybe I need to add this def dump value when is binary value. No change. Why embeds over join tables? I'm doing that with user roles. So there's a user row and a users table. There's a roles table, and then I've got a user roles kind of join table. And at this point, I guess maybe that would be the quicker way to get this thing done, is to have like a roles permissions table to kind of join the two together. I thought it seemed convenient. It still seems convenient just to have the permissions listed directly, like embedded in the roles table. The trade-off there is that if, so that these permissions are not like reusable. So say like you wanted to have, I think you're talking me into this as I talk it out. So yeah, the limitation here is like once you add a permission to a role, like that permission only exists for that role. And if you wanted to have a permission used for multiple roles, then you would have to duplicate it or like just recreate it. So the thing is though, even if I switch to a join table for roles permissions, I still will have this issue, I think, with the Atom custom type. I wonder if there's like an Atom custom type somewhere in Hex. Look at this. Someone's already done this. I could have done this hours ago. 2017. Let's take a look at the code before we start just pulling this in. Wouldn't it be great if this just works? Or if I could just copy the Atoms and Ecto. Okay, I'm going to take a look at that article here in a second. Okay, so what do we have here? The type string. I'm going to use type binary. I think that's okay. Cast. When value is Atom. What? Oh. Voila. I was converting to a string when I did need to. Oh boy. Yeah. I don't know why it was so much easier to do the cos key. Maybe I'm like encoding the cos key when it doesn't need to be as well. Let's take a look at that. The cos key. When it's a map, it's encoding it. It's been working, so I really hesitate to like change the cos key type. but you know, it could be a problem. I also, to be honest, I have not added tests for WebAuthn because I needed to understand it before I could, like, it's like a physical device typically, and I need to understand like how to mock that. Also kind of on the fence about, you know, sticking with the wax package or switching to something else, or building something new. But yeah, I think that's complex enough that I'm not going to do. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, what's this? Site writing dev, running this. Okay, I mean, we got there. It was just a bit of a journey. So I did say I was going to provide this example, right? I wonder how much of this is unnecessary now. Let's try commenting some things. I'm sure you TDD all the live long day, right? Okay, I'm gonna persist. I'm gonna commit these changes. At least for the Atom custom type. I'm gonna turn this test back on. I'm gonna see it fail. Sometimes TDD, yeah. I feel like I'm better at TDD when I, like, and this is kind of the wrong approach, but like I feel like I'm better at TDD like when I have like a pattern that I understand. Like if I'm working on a CRUD thing, then I can jump in, I can start a test and say, oh, yeah, I want to create function, I want to delete function, I want to get list function, all those things. But yeah, sometimes you just want to see the things on the page. Okay, so that I'm gonna update fixtures. Okay. I don't think I need that to be open anymore. I think that's good as well. All right, now that we've got it working, let's think about the join table again just for a second and then figure out if I want to switch it up or if I want to stick with embeds. So, okay, the advantage of having the embed is in the database, when you pull up the roles table, there will just be a big old JSON blob in the permissions column, and you can write some SQL to kind of create a view or to render that more nicely, or break it out into separate rows for each permission. I did a little bit of something kind of like that yesterday for a different project. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to use embeds. The question is, like, would I need to like run a query for permissions at some point to like search, not for roles, but search for permissions across roles? I don't foresee that. Like, I think basically what I want to do is whenever, like inside that session hook, I'm going to take the user will be already assigned to the socket. their roles will be preloaded. So I'll be able to just pluck the roles out of the user schema or the user struct. And then if that role contains any permissions with the module name that is currently being that's currently in the socket, then we will check like we will like if the module name's in there, then we will allow the socket to continue so it can load that live view. And then within the live view, I may need to create. So I was kind of think through this part a little bit further, but like I want to authorize not only access to the live view, but each of the events independently. So like you might be able to, I don't know, like view a live stage, but you might only be able to add performers to a live stage if you have a role with like permission to add performers or something like that. So like I think directly within that handle event for like add performer, it would check the user's role, or like maybe we'd assign the permission to the socket in the session hook so that it's just already there. So that we just look into the permission to see if this event is in that list of events. There may be a way to kind of abstract that a little bit, but yeah, that's kind of the fuzzy vision of the future for how I want to use this. I think that will work as long as the types all get converted correctly. Okay, so I've got my add permission module here. It's going to take a role, and it's going to take a map of attributes. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. Thing is, like if I store, so I'll just read this out loud. I think, this is Zach, by the way. I think I would use roles as a handy organizer for labeling groups, assigning permissions, but check against the user's distinct permissions for authorization checks. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm doing here. I think the question is just like where to put the permissions at the end of the day. Like, is it going to be easier on a day-to-day, like as a developer, is it going to be easier to have them embedded or to have them in a separate table where they're joined through a many-to-many relationship? Like if I were to have a separate table of permissions, I think the many-to-many just may be a little bit more complex because I don't think I would be able to so yeah, if I wanted to check permissions for a particular user without first going through the join table or through roles, then I would also need a join table for user permissions. And I don't know, that to me that starts to sound a little bit more complicated. Because otherwise, like I would have a table of permissions, but with the roles permissions join, those would like I would still be like at the end of the day, they would still be coming through the roles struct. I would still be grabbing them out of there, I think. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with the embedded permissions, and then if it, like now that I got the type conversion out of the way for the module name, I think it's going to work the way I intended. If it gets to be painful though, I'm never above like just refactoring or moving things around. I've done that a few times with embeds, but this particular use case I think is going to work really well for roles and permissions. But if you want to bet me money, then maybe we'll do that. Okay, so adders. did just realize, so in the user, in the role fixture, so whenever I create a role with permissions, like it's going to require one permission, so that's good. I can imagine, yeah, like JSONB. You know, there was kind of, so this is something weird, just a tangent. This is something weird I ran into this week, because I am using embeds for a project, like real-time editing. Like what can I say? So for some this is a situation where I initially had multiple roles or multiple rows in a database for a user, where they would have. I don't know if I can even explain the problem that I was solving, but in a nutshell, like I wound up converting from multiple rows for a user into a single row per user, so that it simplified the unique index that I built, so that each user can only have one row for like it's like a request. So like initially thought you could, like a user could have multiple requests for this particular table, but I opted, like it was going to be complicated to have a unique constraint around the user ID and then a couple of other columns. And long story short, I converted it to an embedded schema for the like the user's request, so I kind of put into one column as an embed. And yeah, so that works. Covered, like solved the problem of the unique index thing. And then I did run into some confusing things around, like I think initially what had happened was I had to, long story short, I had to reset the database because I'd made changes to a migration, and then I think I just forgot to like roll back and remigrate. Because initially I had set it up as like the field was going to be like add this whatever the column name is, and then I started with like array comma map, like that tuple. So it's going to be like an array of maps. Eventually, because that would make sense, like it was going to be a collection or a set of maps at the end of the day. But whenever I did that, some of the JSONB Postgres functions weren't working, and anyway, I converted the migration to just be a map instead of an array of maps for these columns. That solved the problem, even though in Ecto it's actually like an array of values. In the migration, it is just a map, and Ecto does what it needs to do, and I stopped having Postgres errors with that. So it is what it is. Embeds, you really want to know what you're doing with embeds, and even when you know what you're doing, it can still be kind of a pain in the ass, because it's just kind of like not an edge case. It's just kind of like an unusual way of solving a problem. But yeah, here we are. So I can create a role with permissions already. So this new function is just for updating a role with a new permission. Yeah, schema migration types are tricky. I think this will work. Let's take a look at the role change set. Actually, I can just jump right in, right? There we go. I think I may need a separate change set for adding permissions. So I'm going to require permissions is in the attributes. I think this was generated. It's kind of weird that Credo has like, you know how pedantic Credo can be? Well, Credo has like forced it into my brain that a pipeline must always start with a raw value. Otherwise, CI will fail and bad things happen. I guess chain set. I think I'm going to do the same thing I kind of did with, let's see, we're going to use chain set, adders, going to validate required. I don't think I'm actually adding anything. I'm not adding any value with this new function. It's already casting the live permissions in the original chain set. Update chain set is taking that and then adding a requirement for the updated by. There's not really anything else to be change setted. So I think update change set should do what it needs to do. The only change here is I moved that raw value up above the pipe. Okay. Let's just run these tests. I forget where I'm at here with the test. Ah, okay, great. That is great. I've got this test. This test is about to be fixed. Okay. I think updated by is going to be the user.id and then live permissions. Oh, it's going to be permission adders. Please work. If this works, I'll do a shot. Man, I wanted to do a shot. Okay. Peptid map. Got test. Okay. So live permission. Events is an array of strings. What about the database? Okay, so live permissions, just a map. Well, it's a map in the database, which means it's JSON or JSONB. Okay, so then events is an array of strings. Cast, Okay, so whenever we run this through the fixture, it's fine. It's working. It looks like that. Did I just... copy and paste here and just make sure this isn't a typo issue. I don't think anything changed. Add the permission with valid attributes. Expected a map. Got test. Okay, so in the add permission, it goes through the update chain set, which is good. Roll adders live. Oh, I think no, live permissions. That's the right key. Events. Okay. Array of strings seems right. Let's take a look at schema. See what I'm doing wrong here. I don't know why it's saying it should be a map. Because I'm telling it to be an array. Events. Okay, so let's walk back through the stack trace. All right, 168, we go to authorization, add permission. It goes to authorization line 66, goes through the chain set, goes through the roll, through that chain set, goes through the chain set. Oh, I think I see what's happening here. So chain set. Just gonna rename this to make sure it's not like a naming conflict. Well, nope. I'm gonna undo that. Let's see. There's not like a chain set function in the chain set module, which is good. And there's not a chain set in the schema module, which is also good. So I'm not like conflicting with anything there. Maybe enroll. So cast embed. Just gonna do this real dirty for a moment. lately it's been impossible to hit the Y button the first time I hit. So I do inserted by, created by all the time. I've been typing inserted by, created by. Same error, okay. Well, at least, I mean, it kind of makes sense. It'd be weird to see a different error. Change that. Required true, required message, please. Yeah, sometimes this is what engineering is like, right? You work on like a very stubborn problem for like an hour or two. Finally, after some Googling or whatever, I solve the error or solve the problem. And then right behind that is like another stubborn problem. Maybe it's like maybe I'm just not thinking straight today. It's possible. Like I said, I didn't get a lot of sleep. Or I didn't get as much sleep as normal. Still got 6 or 7 hours of sleep the past couple of nights, but maybe did too much client work or something. I don't know. Okay, so right, I could turn all the lights off, shut the window, or go to the basement or something and throw on a hoodie and be right into the mainframe. Cast embed. I think I just realized what I'm doing wrong here. That's supposed to be a list. I'm gonna do a big shot after this if it passes. Well, I got a different error. I would almost consider that a success. Attempting to change relation live permissions. Yes, this is the error that I needed. I think what am I supposed to do here? On replace. I think I'm going to delete. Use the delete option here. I think this is going to work. All right, it's time for a shot. I do want to log that out just so I can kind of see what the result is. Like, am I getting two live permissions with the same module now? Are they? Okay, so I'm seeing this just one live permission. So, okay, so just recap here. Setup will create a role which has one live permission. same module that I'm already providing here, same events. So if I add the permission and it already exists, it's not duplicating it. It's just deleting and replacing it. I think that's actually okay. I don't really mind that. I don't necessarily want to like have another error to handle if you're just replacing an existing permission with itself. But I do want to see what happens if I have a different value here. Like, am I going to see two different live permissions, or are these two events going to show up in the same live permission? Drum roll. Okay, so we get one live permission. Okay, so add permission, it's not really adding a permission, it's updating permissions. Like, it's replacing the live permissions with the new value. So I may need to grab the permissions first, then add to the list. Wonder, let's try, I'm going to go back to live permissions, and I think there was another option here for mark as invalid. Let's just see what happens if we do that. So there should be, I think, two live permissions here, one of them marked invalid, maybe somehow. Okay, we'll get an error. Errors. Live permission is invalid. Embed type. Okay. So we're going to go back to delete. Maybe there's like a update embed. Okay, I don't see it. Update embed. Cast embed, which we've looked at. Yes, there's a put embed as well, so I think that would replace. So yeah, I think what I've got to do here is I have to, like, before I can add a permission, I've got to get the permission, or I've got to get the role so I can get the existing permissions. And then I've got to either update the permission with the same module name, or add it to that list of permissions. That actually raises an idea here. For live permission, maybe I need to use the module as the primary key. The reason for that is, like, currently it uses like a UUID for the permission ID. I mean, that's okay. Like, if I wanted to update this permission, like, I could, I guess, jump through some additional hoops, and then update this permission that's embedded in the role. But just to simplify things, I think I want to ensure that there's only one permission per module within a role. So I think making the module like the primary key might be the way to go there. So let's go to Schema. Primary key. Let's try this. Module. Oh, this got to be a tuple. So it's going to be module, atom, auto generate false. All right, then I think I remove. I'm just going to comment that for now. Cool. That works, I think. Okay, let me go back to my fixtures and just try. I just want to see if this. So I want to see if we're overriding the other module, for example. All right. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, so yeah, I need to get the permissions from the role before I update the role, because otherwise it keeps overriding live permissions. Like whatever's in live permissions is gonna get overwritten, overrode, whatever. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to update this method here to get the role first. Embeds are not an association, so they don't need to be preloaded. So that should just give me the role that I need. And permissions. Live permissions. I could destructure that, or I'll just stick with this. Okay, so then, so adders should have live permissions. I think I'm going to enforce updated by and live permissions here. Maybe. So adders. It's going to be messy, but I can clean it up later. Combined permissions is going to be I haven't combined two lists in a while. Maybe this is a enum function. Okay, let's see if this works. What I want to see is in this test result, or the IO inspect, I want to see two live permissions. I want to see LiveShowy web landing live with the events that it's showing now, test, and another test. Okay. Because because that's the updated permission, so that should overwrite the pre-existing permission, and then we should see the test module permission in there as well. That's what I want to see. But that's not what happened. All right, I did promise to do a shot, so I'm going to go grab that and be right back. All right, I'm back. So this shot is, well, if you know me, it's going to be vodka. So, well, you already know it's vodka. This is a Svedka Blue Raspberry. It's a Swedish vodka. I really like it. It's really smooth, at least this particular flavor. And mix that with Diet Coke, and it's like really tasty Really tasty drink. Actually, most vodkas, even the ones that are kind of a little bit harsh on their own, if you mix them with some soda, turns out pretty good usually. And for me, I'm a lightweight, so I typically will have a shot or two once or twice a week, maybe. And then on special occasions, maybe say like an elixir conference of any variety. I think 3 or 4 is like the magic number. Anything more than that, it starts to get a little bit risky. What? Come here. What do you want? I don't know if you can hear this. What? Okay. Got a little princess down there who has to be the center of attention. Cool. So cheers, happy weekend, long holiday, long weekend, happy holiday, long weekend. This is what, Memorial Day? I should know, actually. I'm gonna fact check myself real fast. Yeah, Memorial Day. Monday. So I get the 3-day weekend. Yeah, I always mix up Labor Day and Memorial Day. Like I guess Labor Day is coming up in a few months, so I'll have just enough time to forget which one's which until there's like a reminder in the calendar. Or like a announcement at work. Okay. Back to coding, building LiveShowy. Thanks for sticking around, by the way, Zach. I love having... This is almost like a pairing session. Having ideas, pitching ideas and stuff. It's fun. Okay, so I'm just going to find out what's going on with this combined permissions. Really? Okay, so combined permissions. I see. Okay, so it's a list of 3 elements. It has 2 permission structs and then 1 map, which is supposed to overwrite. So I could reduce. I could do a couple things here. I could convert. I don't want to do a bunch of like circular type conversion, you know, into a map and out of a map and all that kind of stuff if I don't have to. Seems like there's probably a way. Yeah. I can map over the lists, and then if the module name, or for each module name and new permissions, I think I'm gonna have to write a for comprehension to understand how to do this. So here's what I'm gonna do. I don't know why she's so needy today. Like usually I get ignored 23 hours out of the day from that one particular cat. There's got to be like a zip function or something that I can combine these 2 lists and like overwrite the existing permission with the same module name with the new version, and then not touch any of the others. Seems like this is something like a zip. That should be my history. Okay, so how am I going to overwrite a permission in the live permissions without, let's see. First of all, let's talk about zip. What does zip do? So if I provided zip, so this is enum.zip. This is where a join table to do an insert all or conflict nothing might be handy. You're going to shame me into writing a join table, I know, at some point. I've not accepted defeat yet, so I'm sticking with enums, at least for this live stream. But, you know, I guess it's a flip of the coin whether I'll be on enums or join table next time I do a stream. Okay, so zip will take corresponding elements from two enumerables into a list of tuples. Zipping finishes as soon as either an enumerable completes. So the example here would be kind of contrived. So this is a list of 1, 2, 3. And then on the right side, the list of ABC. So basically it takes like from, think of like a spreadsheet with like two, like if you took each of these lists and like printed them as rows, it's going to basically take it's going to make a tuple out of each pairing of those rows side by side. So that's zip. Now if I want to do like a comparison or something, then I think zip with might be the way, but I think this is changing the structure, like the structure of the data in the enumerables is going to be different when it comes out of one of these, I think. I can kind of see what it's doing, but maybe zip is not what I want. Yeah, unique would be cool, but the thing is, like the let's take a look at what it presented here. So it would I could maybe do like unique by. So like I would need to look for the module attribute, like the module key within each item in this list. I just don't know, like is it going to predictably overwrite the pre-existing live permission with the new map? I'm not really sure. I guess we could try that real quick. So I'm going to re-enable that. I'm going to do combined permissions equals, oh yeah, I guess I could just do this and then do enum. Of course, I've got to start with the raw value. Unique by, and this is where I can just do capture module. I think that, so let's see if we should see like LiveShowy web landing live should have test and another test. Okay, so it did not overwrite the pre-existing permission with the new map. So, yeah, I think that's maybe because like the list, I think just concatenating is not going to be the way to go here. I may want to joins a string. Let's see. Do you feel like I'm a little bit more efficient when I'm like spinning up like views and grids and flexbox and templates and stuff, doing layout and content? Let's see. So I can imagine like some very complex ways of doing this, but I'm trying to think of like the simplest way to kind of merge these two lists, overriding existing modules with new permissions. So this may be, this is one of those problems where walking around the block actually would help, because it's like there's a stew of the idea. It's in there. It's in there somewhere. It just needs to be kind of like, needs to like ladle out the chunky bits. So I could do enum dot. Basically, I want to update. I'm just going to do a for comprehension here. Now, you know how hard it is to switch back and forth from JavaScript to Elixir? I would be writing a for her comprehension in Elixir and then say like for something and then use n, like in, the enumerable, because that's what you do in, well, you can do that in JavaScript. And yeah, but I really do have to toggle back and forth because not everyone's on live view yet. Not under my control. This app though is 99% live view, at least on the website. So for existing permission in live permissions, do first, I'm just going to return the existing permission just so we can get the formatting in the right place. Okay. Like I said, we're going to make it messy, then we're going to make it clean. So if Okay, will this work? No red line, no squigglies anyway. Did I run the test? This could probably be simplified. All right, let's see if there's any errors with this. Sweet. Okay, that's actually, I think, doing what I need it to. So, okay. So for updated permissions, I'm looping over the existing permissions, or the existing live permissions. And then within the new permissions, if there is a permission with the same module name, I return that new permission, which is just a map. Otherwise, I return the existing permission. And here, I probably need to make this go like map.from struct so that it can actually go into the chain set. I think that's what it needs. Indeed. Voila. All right. I think I've hit my limit on like how many brick walls I can just hit my head against today. So I might commit this and call it a day. I'm not even finished that shot yet. That's true. That's something I thought about before I started writing all this code in this just a few minutes ago. Was like, I could convert this list of existing permissions to a map where the module is the key and the events is the value. Access the key, update the events, and for each permission, for each new permission, update the events on that key, and then put that map back into a list where the module and the events are under those keys. That would be an optimization. And I could do that. Question right this moment is, what do I gain? So this type of operation is going to be pretty, not on a Saturday afternoon. So yeah, just to share my thoughts and kind of think it out. So this works. It's doing what I want it to do. It's taking an existing live permission if there's the same, a matching module name, and it's updating that. Otherwise, it's returning existing permission. I need to test though, what if I add a permission that doesn't have the same, where a module name is not already in the list? Because I think then it's just going to disappear. So that might be a little bit messy too. So like this would work within like a function called update permission. But, and yeah, even there I might refactor that into a map of module names and events as the keys. But here I need to make sure like a new permission will show up in the list. Because like this logic right now is only going to update or return existing permissions. So I'm just looking at the enum functions here. Max, remember. Also, yeah, so I think just to kind of point out what the reason you recommended using like converting this to a map and then using access, that would be much more efficient, especially for like a very large list. And that, you know, as this app grows, that could potentially, like, you could potentially have a role with like hundreds of permissions, maybe thousands. I don't think this is going to be like an enterprise level application though, so I think hundreds of permissions, maybe. I think it's probably going to be more in the range of like dozens of permissions. So like at the end of the day, if a user, like say an admin, is updating or like adding permissions to a role, I think more often than not, there's going to be maybe dozens of roles, probably a dozen or less most of the time. Because like these roles should be like reusable throughout the application. Yeah, honestly, my brain feels a little bit fried now after the past couple of days, and then dealing with this candle mess that I cleaned up earlier, and just a little bit less sleep, and kind of like, yeah, just struggling to even finish the sentence. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and call it a day. It's been 3.5 hours since I started streaming, so I think that's a good stream. I'll stick around for a few more minutes though, if there's anything to talk about generally with the app. I think I'm gonna make a couple of notes here. Actually, I'll go ahead and update leave a comment here to do. After I commit some code. I think I added Credo to this project. I'm like wondering if CI is going to fail because I have IO inspects in here. It will, because I do have Credo. By the way, if I run excreted. Let's just see what happens. Get some of that low-hanging fruit. So yeah, IO inspect. It's going to fail on that. I don't know. I wonder if, like, I've seen projects where like there's the test alias in your mix file, and there's like a separate alias for like running test and like Credo and a couple of other things, maybe like Sobolo for security. I kind of wonder, is it a good idea, or like, is this going to bite me if I run Credo along with the tests? Is it going to work the way I think it's going to work? It does. I think I like this. I think I like it because if I'm working on this project or if I have contributors, anytime you run a test, you're going to see these Credo warnings. So hopefully this will kind of, this could, double-edged sword. So this could be like encouraging. It could be like, hey, every time you run a test, we're also going to check, make sure you're formatting the code correctly. But I could definitely see that, like, hey, sometimes you're just like doing things quickly so you can get the test to pass, and you may not necessarily care about like the Credo checks at that point. So I think I do want to keep Credo. I can see that being kind of annoying, or like, you know, on a different day I would be annoyed, or like a different person might be extremely annoyed by seeing Credo warnings every time they run a test. On the flip side, the reason for including Credo in tests would be that if you just see it every time I run a test, then you're less likely to push a bunch of code that's going to fail CI. So you're going to see those errors sooner. I don't know. I think I'm going to leave it out for now. Just wanted to kind of float that idea while it was on my mind. So what do I have left to merge? All right. Yes. See you, Zach. Thanks again for coming by, and hopefully I'll yeah, because yeah, I totally get what you're saying about the join table. Events permission. Yeah, I gotcha. But regardless, whatever happens, thanks for watching and for chatting. That the time flew by a lot faster today than it did on previous live streams, I think, just because just having a conversation there. So thanks again. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up my commits, update my project board, and then I will be back on. So currently, I've got this scheduled for 3 o'clock Eastern time on Saturdays. Now that I got one viewer, I'm kind of wondering this would be, I don't know. I think I'm going to try to be consistent for another month. So I'm going to leave it at 3 p.m. Eastern time, and then, if it helps move the numbers, maybe adjust the schedule later on. But anyway, if you're interested, I'll be back online 3 o'clock next Saturday. Sometimes over the weekend, especially with the Memorial Day, I may jump back on unannounced. But 3 o'clock Eastern time next Saturday should be when I'm live streaming again. So, and then if you're watching this in the future, this will be on YouTube. You can find me on Twitter. My handle is @OwenBickford. You can look at all my ugly, atrocious, embarrassing code, which is from years gone by, at GitHub. My handle there is @type1full. And other than that, I will be streaming again next week. Thank you for stopping by.